Are we, man, spreading enough? Well, you got to wonder, like, who owns, and this, okay, so now we're going to start getting into the woo-woo conspiratorial shit, right? So who owns Procter & Gamble? Who owns a lot of these big media conglomerates? And I mean, so I suspect, so here, I'm going to break it down, okay? I very strongly suspect that the central banks, because they are largely unaudited, and because the partial audit that we had of the Federal Reserve System in the United States revealed, what was it, $16 trillion in off-the-books loans and all kinds of irregularities that never got followed up on. Thank Bernie Sanders for that, actually. So the one thing, that I agree with Bernie Sanders on, he was responsible for a partial audit of the Fed at the very least. I believe that if people have that power to do that, and they can get away with whatever they want, they can literally generate money out of thin air at will without being audited or accountable to anyone. Why would they not try to bribe everyone and own everything? Why would they not do that? And who are the people who are the beneficiaries of the central banks? That's a mystery. And to me, the fact that
that's interesting.
Right? The fact that the whole world is not having this conversation going, the nexus of power in the world is owned by people that, nobody really knows who it is. and they operate unchecked.
We just pretend it's just part of some government structure.
Well, that's in the
all these countries have central banks.
That's right.
But then all the central banks report to the World Bank, right?
Well, I don't know if they report. See, that's an interesting thing. That's a very good question. I know that in the United States, and anybody who believes that this sounds like conspiratorial nonsense, you can see Alan Greenspan saying this quite plainly on video, that the Federal Reserve operates totally autonomously and answers to no one, right? So the president appoints the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, but once you make that appointment, they don't have to be accountable to anybody. They don't report to anybody. They are not audited, nothing, right? And it operates under this quasi-governmental label of the Federal Reserve System, but it doesn't really operate as a government agency would, right? And the argument people give for that is, well, you don't want Congress going in there and mucking up our finances, do you? Really? That's your argument? I mean, okay, so who should we have? We should have a faceless overlord be in charge of it. That's a much better idea, right?
It's so obvious if you have this whole thing that creates money and doesn't have to do its own accounting publicly.
Yeah.
Then you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Whoever you are.
Man, I don't want to get jaded, right? And I don't want to get to a point where it's like, okay, the world is just too dumb. We need to give up. I don't want to reach that point, man. But it's hard sometimes. It's hard because everybody is so anesthetized. Everybody is so distracted and is so misinformed.
It's almost understandable in a weird way because, if people are worried about what they're going to eat, or even on another level, they're worried about their debt and bills, which could be part of the fucking plan woven into there. But if they're worried about such short-term survival things and drama and what's on the news and what's on their Facebook feed, you can't even imagine trying to think about issues that actually... See, this is what I think. I think that we're being programmed with very short-term... We react to short-term thinking more than long-term, reptilian-wise, basically.
Yeah.
So they keep throwing that at you, and we can't do anything about it. So then you can't think long-term or on a higher level because they got everybody thinking so short-term.
That's right. Well, I think it's interesting. There are a lot of interesting dynamic forces at play here, right? And the fact of the matter is, most people don't have time to dig into things deep enough to really have much of an understanding, so that's one level, is to have the time to dig.
Because they're like, well, what am I going to do about it anyway?
Right. Well, and even if you do dig and you get that information, going against the social pressure of saying, you know what, it seems like everybody's fucking lost their minds right now. I mean, think of what the social cost of that is. You pay a social penalty for talking about the kind of things that we talk about. Now, thankfully for us, we have social circles where it's okay, but not everybody has that luxury. There are a lot of people who live in neighborhoods or in families or in groups of people where if they start talking like this, it's like, oh, tinfoil hat, blah, blah, blah. They immediately get ridiculed.
That Alex Jones.
Yeah, right. And then with that, with a phrase, with a word, with a gesture, with a little bit of, ridicule in their tonation.
The label.
The label, yes. One of my old buddies in the intelligence community, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't know if he wrote this on Facebook and asked me to retweet it or repost it. So anyway, he knows who he is. We'll see if he wants to be mentioned in this show, the context of this show or not. But he made a very interesting observation. He said, I'm paraphrasing what his notion was, but he was just saying how astonished he was about how easily people accept fact-checking. And he said, his observation was, well, wow, if I realized fact-checking was so easy, it would just do away with, hundreds of, or thousands of years of common law of trying to establish, evidence, and as a lawyer, right? So he's a guy who worked in the intelligence community. He's now, quite a gifted lawyer, brilliant guy, one of the smartest guys out of the intelligence community, which is saying a lot because it's, a group of very, very smart dudes, right? And then I made the counter observation and I said, well, and remember back in Intel, right? We didn't just, we didn't have fact checking, where like somebody goes, oh, is that true? Oh, let me check. Yep, it's true. No, you had to corroborate multiple sources. I mean, when you decide, hey, there's a target over there and we're going to drop some ordnance on that target, you got to make sure that you're not killing women and children, that is actually legitimately an enemy target. And we have very high standards that, most of the time we live up to. Now, when we don't, hopefully it gets a lot of publicity and people are like, holy shit, I better not do that again. I don't want to, needlessly kill civilians. I mean, I don't want war, period. But I mean, if we're going to have to fight at all, let's limit it to the war fighters.